It's a bizarre story you have to hear to believe. Are zombie hunters real? The answer may shock you. A crazed madman has been roaming the city of Phoenix, Arizona, clad in a comic book superhero outfit, a car that was dripping with fake blood, and portraying himself to be a zombie hunter. Turns out this particular zombie hunter had a dark side, filled with murder, mayhem, and vengeance. Buckle up, because this week we're going on a wild ride. Hey everyone, I'm Jen. Thanks so much for being with us for another week of Two Crime Newsies.
Hi, I'm Tina, and this is a crazy story.
Yeah.
48 Hours, I think Jen knows what they're doing when they title their episodes, because I was flipping through the thumbnails when we were recording before we recorded another 48 Hours, and when I saw the thumbnail clip of this guy and his car, and then the title, Unmasking a Zombie Hunter, I'm in.
You're in. I'm in too.
There's something wrong with us, I think.
This week we're talking about the Dateline episode Unmasking the Zombie Hunter. It was released in October of 2020. It is season 36, episode 8. Okay, so before we get into it, I want to say this episode is not meant for children. We're going to talk about some creepy stuff. I'm sure this probably gave Tina some nightmares.
Yeah, I had to watch this twice, by the way, so that wasn't fun.
I know how much you'd love to do that.
I watched it once with my husband to watch it as a viewer, and then a second time to take notes. But the first time, I was definitely passively watching while I was doing stuff. The second time I watched it, I looked at him and said, "This is crazy!" And he was like, "Yeah, where you been?"
Okay, so the show is narrated by Peter Van Sant, and it takes place in the city of Phoenix. Now, Phoenix is the state capital of Arizona. It's known for its year-round sun, warm temperatures. It's in the desert, and it's home to more than 1.6 million people, and that was in 2023. So it's a big city. Mm-hmm. And since it's in the desert, not many people think that there's any kind of like waterways throughout the city, but turns out there are, which that shocked me. I did not know that.
Right.
I've driven through Phoenix a couple of times, and never once would I have been like, hey, there's water here.
Yeah, it's not like there's a giant lake or a river or anything. It's what they call them, canals.
Mm-hmm. So the city has quite a few of them, and they go through the center of the city. People flock to these canals for biking, for walking, which totally makes sense. You want to be around that water.
Right. The canals aren't very wide, but on each side of the canal, there's paved trails that run alongside it, and it looks like it's a great area to run or bike.
Tina just looked online, and it's like more than 100 miles of canals throughout the city of Phoenix.
That's crazy.
So you live in this desert, and so you flock to the water for your biking, for your hiking, or your walking around, that kind of thing. Suddenly, danger crept into this area, and women started disappearing while they were out and about by the canals. This story starts out in November of 1992. 22-year Angela Brasso was new to Phoenix, and she was out for a bike ride along one of these canals when she was abducted, stabbed, dismembered, and then decapitated.
We're going right into it, huh?
We sure are.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot. She went out for a bike ride around sunset. Her boyfriend went out looking for her when she didn't come back, and he was the one who reported her missing. They found part of her body in a field next to the canal trails the next day after she went missing. And at the age that I'm at today, I don't care, Jen, how safe of an area someone tells me that I'm in. I'm not going for a walk or bike ride by myself. But at 22, maybe I would.
Yeah.
You don't think about that stuff when you're that young. You kind of feel like you're invincible. Stuff happens, but to other people. You don't think about how dangerous it is to be alone, especially at night. Mm-hmm. Something else to think about is she might not have been worried about being alone because, as you said, people flock to this area. And they likely do go in the evenings and at night because it's hot during the day in the desert.
Yep.
And this is the time when they can cool off, they can get some exercise and not overheat. So she was probably used to seeing people on the trails and didn't think that there was any danger to being there by herself, because maybe there's always someone kind of around, you know?
Yeah, I totally think that makes sense.
But the thing is, you never know if those people who are always around are good people or bad people.
When I worked at the TV station, we would do this whole thing where it was like most wanted gang member of the week, and we would like have it on the screen for a couple minutes, and we'd talk about
Was that like student of the week?
but for bad people.
Oh my gosh.
And one time I was at a grocery store, and the most wanted gang member of the week, who I had just run on my show, was standing in front of me in line.
Stop it.
Yes. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, that's him. Crazy.
So if he was the most wanted gang member, did you call it in?
What do you think?
You didn't?
No, actually, so thankfully somebody else recognized him, I think, from the grocery store, because he was then taken into custody the next day.
Oh my gosh. That's creepy.
Isn't that crazy, though?
Yeah.
So we hear on the show from Detective Clark Schwarzkopf, and he is a detective in the Phoenix Cold Case Unit, and he was assigned this case. And he says that there's a lot of tunnels in Phoenix that go beneath the interstate, because Phoenix is a city of highways. And those tunnels can be really good ambush sites for bandits. And I'm, again, using that word bandits like I did in the Pappygate episode, because my kids love it. And I love that word bandits for bad guys.
I like the word bandits too. I'm all for it. When you think of tunnels, what do you think of? I think of...
I think of mole people.
I'm sorry, what?
I think of mole people.
Mole people.
Not mold. Mole.
Yeah, mole people.
Yeah, it's a thing.
What do you mean it's a thing?
Like people who live underground.
What are you talking about? Mole people. Like this isn't some fictional show that you're talking about.
No, like mole people. So it's like literally like a culture that like lives underground, and they live in tunnels and things like that. It's like a real thing.
Where are the mole people?
Well, they're not here. We don't live in a place with lots of tunnels.
But where are the mole people?
In tunnels.
Where?
Well, there's like tunnels in really big cities. So like DC has tunnels. Big cities have tunnels, and they live underground in these like abandoned tunnels.
And they call them mole people?
Yes. You don't know about this?
No, is there a show about it? Let's watch.
I'm sure I can probably find something on it.
Please.
Okay, I will.
Okay, back to the tunnels. I think of driving through, is it Mobile? Is that one of the...
Mobile, Alabama.
The under the water tunnel.
Yeah.
Like, I think of, it looks pretty decent, right? It looks kind of cleanish and not scary. I mean, it's scary because it's darkish, right?
My big thing is like you're literally underwater.
Yeah, I don't like to think about that when I go through the tunnel.
That scares me. There's another one of those in, what is it, Norfolk, Virginia? Underground tunnels, like north of the city, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. These tunnels that they show us in, are these the tunnels that we see in this show?
Yes.
Like, are those the actual
Yes.
tunnels? Okay, these are creepy. These are not those tunnels.
Mole
these
people
are
tunnels.
creepy looking, probably mole people tunnels. We see a video of someone biking through the tunnel there, and you're not going to find me in this tunnel ever.
No, I agree with you on that.
It's scary looking. The lighting is like real dim. It looks dingy. It's littered with stuff. It looks like a place that you would definitely get kidnapped if you were going to get kidnapped from somewhere. I mean, how can people possibly just be fine going through these tunnels?
Yeah, no, I think you're right on that. So on the show, we hear from a Brianna Whitney. Now, she's a reporter at the CBS affiliate in Phoenix. She says that Angela, her torso was found in a field the next to the trail, which Tina had already said. Just the torso.
Oh my.
So 10 days later, a man fishing in the canal found her head, Angela's head, stuck on a grate in the canal. And that would be terrifying. Could you imagine? You're just out there fishing in this canal, having a grand old time, and you look, you cast your rod, and you start reeling it in, and then, hey, there's something over there on that grate there in the distance. Oh my gosh, it's a head.
It's a head.
That's terrifying.
I would never go near the canal again.
Never. So Morgan Lowe, who's an investigative reporter in Phoenix, says that Angela's head was apparently in such great condition that it looked like it had been preserved. If your head, or if your limb in general, is in a body of water, it's going to start decomposing, decaying, flesh comes off.
Thank you for this description.
What? I mean, it does. The fact that it was so well intact made detectives and police believe that it had been preserved. Like, it's a memento for this killer, which is chilling.
That's disturbing, but what do you think it means? Like, are they saying he preserved it and then decided not to keep it and put it there?
I don't know. So at this point, her bike, Angela's bike, was missing and there were no leads. And so the case kind of goes cold. Nobody has any answers. And then 10 months later, in September of 1993, 17-year-old Melanie Burness goes out for a bike ride along the canal, and she never returns home.
We hear from Rachel Shepmaker. She was one of Melanie's friends. Around 10:30 at night, when Melanie didn't come home from her bike ride, Melanie's mom started calling all of her friends to find out if they knew where she was. Rachel was one of those friends that got a phone call, and Rachel says she assumed Melanie was with a friend and just forgot to call her mom and never thought anything terrible happened to her.
A teenager doing teenager things.
Right.
And so the next morning, there was another woman who we hear from on the show named Charlotte Pottle. She was riding her bike along the canal and saw a giant puddle of blood on the pavement, and she called police.
She says she went through the puddle and it splashed on her. So she rides through the puddle, but says something about it just didn't sit right with her. So she stops, turns around to go back and look at it, and realizes the puddle is blood. And at that point, she calls police. And we see in the show what looks like a photo of the puddle with bike tracks running through it. And it looks like a literal red flag.
Mm-hmm. So the picture that we see, like, we're not just talking about like a little smidge of blood. We're talking this was massive. Like, you can tell, like, carnage happened in that spot.
Oh.
And then there's drag marks. It looks, in the pictures that we see on the screen, there's these drag marks off the side. And police end up following those drag marks and find Melanie's body at the bottom of the canal. Get this, close to where Angela's head had been found 10 months before, which is creepy. And even creepier, Melanie was wearing something that her friends say she would never wear. So the question is, was she killed and then changed?
That's weird. Back to Rachel, who's Melanie's friend, tells us that Melanie was wearing a teal bodysuit, something she didn't think that she owned. So Rachel goes to bed thinking, when they find this person wearing this teal bodysuit, Rachel goes to bed thinking that the person they found isn't her friend. She's missing, but she doesn't think this is her because of the teal bodysuit. She doesn't have that. And then she finds out at school the next day that it was Melanie. And we also find out that the two murders, Melanie's murder and Angela's murder, are now known as the Phoenix Canal murders. And police believe that Melanie was targeted and she was stabbed in the back.
So the investigative reporter, Morgan Lowe, says that police suspected the killer got Melanie off her bike somehow from behind. Now, Detective Schwarzkopf with the cold case unit says that both of the knife wounds on Angela and on Melanie were in the exact same position. And they believe that Melanie's body had been dragged off the canal path. The killer then took her clothes off and dressed her in that turquoise bodysuit, which is so weird.
This is a weirdo.
Mm-hmm. We also hear that both women were sexually assaulted. And in my mind, I'm like, ding, 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 Paul Holes.
Remind us who Paul Holes is for people who don't know.
Paul Holes was a criminalist within Contra Costa County, and we talked about him a lot in our first episode with Rebecca Zahow, and we also talked about him a lot in the Golden State Killer case, which is the episode called From Cop to Serial Killer. Mm-hmm. We have done 2 episodes on it. If you haven't listened to it, check it out. And Paul was really instrumental in helping to solve the case of the Golden State Killer because of DNA. So he's a big DNA guy. By this, both women being sexually assaulted, it means there's some kind of DNA, which I'm like, we got you, donkey.
Yeah, and we now Paul Holes isn't in this documentary, but We mention him because every time we hear DNA, he comes to our mind because he's, in our mind, the DNA guy.
Exactly. And the DNA is run, and turns out that the DNA matched the same guy from both attacks. So it was the one suspect. And police suspected that the killer may be a surgeon at this point in time because the stab wounds to the back of each of the victims was so precise that it killed them instantly.
And again, this happened in the 90s. So we hear that for an entire generation, people in Phoenix are terrified. They don't want to let their kids out at night. They don't want to leave their house. There's the killer out there. For 2 decades.
Yep.
This case was cold.
And in 2014, the reporter, Brianna Whitney, says that Phoenix police are at a DNA conference, and a forensic genealogist from California is also at this conference. And again, this reminds me of the Golden State Killer episode, From Cop to Golden State Killer.
That's similar to what happened there.
We hear from Colleen Fitzpatrick, who's the founder of Identifinders International, which is a genealogy type company. And she was at this conference, and so were the Phoenix police. She told police that she could help. And her company had apparently developed a software that could mine public genealogy databases searching for matches to crime scene DNA. This is fascinating to me.
I agree. There are people out there who figure out how to do this stuff, how to mine public genealogy databases. Geniuses.
They really are. It's incredible.
I love that there's people out there that think like this. I mean, I wish that my brain worked like that.
Samesies. So Colleen Fitzpatrick says a few weeks later, police sent her the Y-DNA profile of the Canal Killer. And she says she entered the information into a software and it came up with 6 matches. Those 6 matches matched to the name Miller. That's a wow moment. The problem at this point in time, though, is realistically everybody is named Miller. Miller is such a common name. It's like Smith.
Of course.
Super common.
So annoying.
So Detective Clark Schwarzkopf says he started digging through his 600 persons of interest list.
Now, this 600 persons of interest list, they've had for a while.
They have.
And did they say how they came up with this 600 persons of interest list?
They did not.
Yeah, I really wanted to know that. Like, where did this 600 people come from?
I don't know.
Okay.
They did not explore that. He started going through this list, and turns out there were 6 Millers on this list. And so Detective Schwarzkopf says he went down the list and got to a man called Brian Patrick Miller.
He also, Jen, discovered that Miller had an interesting hobby.
What's his hobby?
The narrator says that Miller would dress up like a comic book superhero. But I'm going to say I've never seen a superhero comic book character like this one.
He's definitely no Spider-Man or Batman.
No, he looks like a comic book villain. He's wearing what looks like a trench coat, some sort of construction-looking helmet, a creepy mask. Someone mentions later goggles. And then something over his mouth that looks kind of like gas masky to me. And he's carrying some kind of bazooka. And someone in the show at one point calls it a Gatling gun. Never heard of it.
I don't know what that is, but that was a creepy looking...
I call it bazooka. Oh, and he's dressed like this while he's driving around in an old police car dripping with fake blood that says Zombie Hunter on it.
This reminds me of yesterday. I was driving in town and I was heading to a doctor's appointment. A car pulled up next to me. It was an old hearse. Yeah, it was an old hearse.
Someone needs to follow that guy.
And it had Ghostbuster on the side of it. And I was like...
I've seen that car.
Yes, and I was like... Who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters!
No, someone needs to follow that guy for real. I have seen that car. I don't know where I've seen that car, but I feel like I've seen that car.
It reminded me of this because I had taken notes on this show the night before, and I was like, oh, maybe he's like a zombie hunter.
Well, I don't like it. I don't like that there's someone like that in our city. Anyway, apparently people in this area knew this guy as the zombie hunter because he would go dressed like this and take his car to parades and festivals. And there's even a picture of him dressed up like the zombie hunter posing with real police officers.
He's like a little celebrity.
He's like right there, an alleged murderer posing with police under their noses. And they don't even know it.
So let's talk about Miller a little bit. He's 42 years old at the time, and he had a record. Turns out when he was 16 years old, and that was in 1989, Miller had stabbed a woman named Celeste Bentley, and he had stabbed her in the back.
But Celeste lived, and they interview her in the show.
Go Celeste.
And she says she was 24 at the time that this happened, and she was on a bus and noticed a young boy who got off at the same stop as she did. And when she got off the bus, she felt something in her back and saw him run. And when she felt her back, she felt blood.
Ugh, that gives me the chills.
I know. So she runs to her work, and her coworker calls for help, and police find him 30 minutes later.
Now, Miller at this point was charged with aggravated assault and was sentenced to juvie for about 2 years. And while Miller was in juvie, we hear his mom found a note that he had written. The note gave me the chills when I saw it because they popped it up on the screen. It said, 1, kidnap the girl. 2, tie her up in the truck. 3, which is illegible because I think the show blocked it out. We hear that the sentence involved some kind of sexual assault. 4, cut her clothes off. Now, in my opinion, the mom did the right thing with the note. She took it straight to police. He was 18, just released from juvie, and was sent to a halfway house and was back out in society, which is scary.
We've seen something similar like this before with the Gilgo Beach murders. The guy they caught had similar notes with creepy things like this.
Oh, yeah. If you want to listen, we did an episode on it.
2 episodes.
2 episodes. They found his manifesto, allegedly, on his computer, and we go into great detail about,
unfortunately,
about what he had written down. Check it out.
Right. So back to this note, we find out the note even mentions decapitating and preserving a head. Miller at one time, we hear, was living in Hawaii with his mom and his dad died in a motorcycle accident. So a few years later, he moves to Phoenix with his mom. And his mom was so freaked out by this note that she told police she wasn't going to allow him to come back home. And I'm thinking, how did they not notice that this guy in the 600 persons list had a record for literally stabbing someone in the back when they were digging through the persons of interest? Like, how did they miss this?
That's a really good point. I hadn't even thought about that. Even though I wonder if, because it was a juvie record, because, you know, sometimes juvie records are sealed.
Okay.
I remember in the TV station, I covered a couple of different stories where, because they were juvenile cases, the records were sealed. And so you didn't even know the name of the person who had committed the crime. They would just be identified as like juvenile 1, juvenile 2.
And there's another point I want to bring up, and we'll get to this later. But we do find out that he's not so innocent even in his adult years.
He really is not.
And there should have been some record of him doing stuff in his adult years. But I don't know if that was an instance of a time when police weren't communicating as well as they do now or what. But anyway, I just find it so odd that they didn't flag this. Anyway.
By this point, it's December of 2014, and Brian Miller is well known throughout Phoenix for his zombie hunting participating parade, like his zombie hunting.
Participating in parades wearing creepy things.
Yeah, exactly. He would wear this like super creepy silver mask with goggles, a helmet, an oversized trench coat, and he is a very large gun, and he would drive around town in what looked like the police car with the words zombie hunter on it, and it had like dripping of fake blood and like fake bloody handprints, and it was a creepy looking car.
It's scary looking for sure. The show says that everybody in the Phoenix area knew this guy as the zombie hunter comic book character, as a good guy fighting the bad guys. These are words from the show, okay? They said everybody in the Phoenix area knew this guy as a zombie hunter comic book character, as a good guy fighting the bad guys. For his vehicle, he bought an old police car and added the words zombie hunter to it. He also had a mannequin in the backseat of the car that looks like a zombie. And the fake blood running down the sides of the car is the creepiest.
Agreed.
It looks so gross.
But the question is, could he really be the Canal Killer?
That's right.
So police started watching Miller in order to get his DNA. Now, he worked at an Amazon warehouse, and there was a plan that police put into place to get his DNA. Tina, tell me about the plan.
I love plans.
I know you do.
So we find out that Miller drives his zombie mobile to work and parks in the same spot every day. Someone's following him, the detective. He would go to his car during his 15-minute breaks, turn up his music full blast. Like, he's got some pent-up rage, I think. And he would do the same thing on his lunch break. So Detective Schwarzkopf is watching him do this, and one day he goes up to Miller while he's in his car and introduces himself as a security consultant. And he says to Miller, thieves have been stealing at the warehouse across the street. So he asks Miller if he would work for him as a security officer to watch the building during his breaks while he's sitting in his car. And he tells Miller that he'll pay him $20 an hour.
Hey, it's an easy $20.
Sure, right? So in January of 2015, Miller meets Schwarzkopf at the Chili's restaurant to fill out a job application. That's my quotes, job application. But they aren't the only ones there. The cold case team is also there, hiding in plain sight, waiting to get something with Miller's DNA on it. And we find out Miller brings his 15-year-old daughter with him.
Ooh.
He has a daughter, Jen.
Ooh.
We also learn he was divorced and single. Now, Miller orders a hamburger, and we hear that he eats it all in about 5 bites. No DNA there. And he doesn't take a drink of water. Highly annoying. Mm-hmm. Like, sir, can you just leave us something?
Can you sneeze on this table here?
Something. So Schwarzkopf is worried.
Rightfully
He needs some DNA. Finally, the guy takes a gosh darned drink of water. And we also learned something very interesting. Schwarzkopf is aware of this guy's history at this point. He knows that this guy stabbed someone when he was a juvenile. And we hear from Schwarzkopf, Jen, that he still doesn't think that this guy could be the guy, the canal murderer. He says his demeanor with his daughter doesn't seem like this guy is a monster. Isn't that nuts?
That's crazy. But it's just that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing. Like, you can present yourself one way and be a completely different way.
That's exactly what it sounds like.
We, as Tina just said, he took a drink of that water glass. Well, after this whole meeting at the Chili's restaurant, the police take the water glass and send it off to the crime lab. And 11 days later, the DNA comes back and it matches Miller. Miller is the Canal Killer.
Yep.
And he's arrested. And at this point, he starts talking to police. And they played the interrogation video, which I love. I love watching an interrogation video because it's just like the stuff that people come up with is fascinating.
Love 48 Hours. They always include such great stuff.
During the video, we see that police tell Miller that they have DNA that connects him to the murders of Melanie and Angela. And he says he doesn't see how that's possible and he didn't kill anyone. At this point, it's the same story over and over again. And I'm like, sorry, bucko, DNA does not lie. And then police searched his house and he is a hoarder.
Jen, have you watched the show Hoarders?
I can't watch that show.
But have you seen it?
I have seen it.
This house looks like a scene from Hoarders. I don't understand how anyone can live in that house. There's nowhere for you to be. There's nowhere to be in this house. There's no room to walk. There's stuff everywhere from floor to ceiling. And it's not just stuff. It's trash. Like garbage. Mm-hmm. Oh. Also, my husband is watching this with me and he makes an interesting observation. He says serial killers. At this point, this guy isn't a serial killer, but still an interesting observation. He says, aren't serial killers usually OCD? And don't they have a stereotype of being extra neat?
You know, that's a good point. I don't know if it's a stereotype, but I feel like the serial killers that we've talked about have been kind of either like pillars of the community, or you're right, they are of the neater variety.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what we normally see if someone's portraying, like Dexter. You know,
He's a fictional serial.
He's a fictional serial killer, but I'm sure they made his character after a lot of the stereotypes of a serial killer. You know, like neat and OCD-ish. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting observation. This guy is not that.
He is definitely not that. So during the police interview in January of 2015, Miller talked about his ex-wife, who's named Amy. And he apparently despised her. Now, Detective Schwarzkopf says that Miller had told Amy about the murder of a young girl in Phoenix who had accidentally come to his door. And he had told her that he had pulled this little girl inside the house and killed her and dismembered her and disposed of her remains in trash left on the curb outside of his house. Now, police start looking into this, and they think the victim was a 13-year-old girl named Brandy Meyer, who was last seen 2 doors down from Miller's house the night that she went missing. And this is a long time ago. She was going door to door in May of 1992, which is before the Canal killings. Mm-hmm. And she was collecting money for a school book drive and never returned home.
Terrible. Amy met Miller. Amy is the ex-wife of Miller. That she met Miller when she was 19, and they married less than a year after they met. They moved to Everett, Washington, and we hear that Amy didn't report what Miller told her about killing a young girl to police because she didn't know if it was a true story. She was also afraid of this guy, and she supposedly said she wanted to be a good wife.
Red flag.
Wow. Also, Brandy disappeared in 1992, as you said, before the murders, 6 months before the first Phoenix Canal murder. And Miller, at this time, was living at the halfway house. And that house, Jen, was only a block away from Brandy's school, 3 blocks away from her house. We hear from Brandy's sister every day. Brandy's sister says her and Brandy would walk by this guy's house.
And since there was never any evidence against Brian Miller in Brandy's case, he was never charged. Now, Miller, meanwhile, denies that he ever had anything to do with her disappearance. And we don't know. There's still nothing against it. We don't know where this little girl ended up. Mm-hmm. And in 2002, Miller was living in Everett, Washington. There was a woman named Melissa Ruiz Ramirez who was walking down the street. And Miller, I guess, lived nearby, and he saw her walking on the road and pulled his car over, and she got in the car with him.
Don't do that. Never
do that.
No.
She told him she needed to use the phone, so he took her to his work. And while she was on the phone, he ran at her, we hear on the show, with a large kitchen knife and stabbed her in the back. What is it with the student backs?
Seriously.
Melissa, we hear, managed to get away and call police. And Miller was arrested and charged with first-degree assault with a deadly weapon. Now, listen to this. He admitted to stabbing Melissa, but said it was self-defense. And because it was this whole he said, she said thing, he was acquitted of the charge. So Amy ended up divorcing Brian Miller after he got out of jail because he had turned dark, we hear. Detective Schwarzkopf on the show says that Brian was into some sexually deviant things like holding a knife to her throat during sex. Oof, red flag.
Nope.
And
that's not good. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm just trying. I have to somehow figure out a way to lighten this crazy, heavy, dark mood.
You're like, woof.
I hate it.
And in October of 2022, Brian Miller's murder trial starts for the Canal murder cases in Phoenix, Arizona. And get this, right away, his attorney said that he was, in fact, the Canal killer. That, to me, was when I heard that, I was like, what?
I mean, you can't deny it. You got the DNA.
You got the DNA. but that he was not guilty by reason of insanity. Now, the defense attorney said Brian Miller's mom had tortured him when he was a child. His mom apparently had worked in prisons as a guard and was rough with him at home. We hear that he was exposed to pornography at a very young age and was also exposed to like violent films.
The last few minutes of the show are trial footage.
Yep.
And I think this is fascinating that we get to see this. Essentially, we hear that the defense claims at the time there were two different Brian Millers.
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
They say there was a normal dad with a job and friends, and then there was a killer Brian. Also, his defense attorneys claim he had no memory of the two murders he was charged with. Even though they say he's guilty, they claim that he had no memories of the murders.
Like he had blacked out when he was committing
They
them?
just said he had no memory of it.
Brian Miller is found guilty and he is sentenced to death. My big thing about this is, so we know he killed two at the canals. We know that he had stabbed somebody in the back and she lived. We hear that...
Stabbed two people in the back and they lived.
That's right. The lady in Everett, Washington as well. And he's suspected of killing a teenage girl who just happened to be going door to door selling books for a book drive. I'm sure there's probably more victims of Brian Miller out there.
Yeah, because a lot of these ones just flew under the radar. The show ends with a graphic that says, under Arizona law, Brian Miller's death sentence will be automatically appealed. Doesn't say when, though.
Doesn't say when. Well, I did some digging after this, and I found in July of 2024, the zombie hunter was back in the news. According to a CBS article that I found online, he said life on death row is cold and the food is not great. Wah, poor you. Not. And he is currently being housed in Florence, Arizona. In my opinion, he is right where he belongs.
It was really creepy to watch the trial. And he doesn't take the stand, but they do ask him at one point if he wants to address the court. He mentions how he thinks this time is for the victims and their families to speak out.
It reminded me.
Oh my gosh, I can't.
So we haven't done an episode on him, but Dennis Rader, who was BTK in Wichita, Kansas, it reminded me a lot of when Dennis Rader gave his statement at the end of his trial. And he kind of made it talking about the victims, and he would like try to relate it to himself, and it was all about himself. Brian Miller, and this was like, thank you, Judge. I know this didn't go well, but like, thank you. And it's just
so
this
bizarre.
over the top, like
over the top niceness. Because there was no jury trial in this trial. It was a judge that was going to decide his fate.
Yep.
And he was addressing the judge. I mean, sure, it could have been that he was just saying whatever he thought he could say to sway the judge in his favor. But yeah, it just came off so strange to me.
Well, we would love to hear what you think of The Zombie Hunter. If you want to send us an email with a show suggestion, please do. We're at twocrimenewsies@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram, on Facebook, and we have been ending these shows by reading a review that someone has left us. And so we got a review on Apple Podcasts, and I'm going to read it to you. You ready, Tina?
I'm ready.
All right. It says, what a great podcast. 5 stars for sure. Jen and Tina bring a new format to covering the true crime genre, and it's great. I can't wait to hear more every week. Keep up the great work. How awesome is that?
Thank you so much for that review. Thank you for the 5 stars. Leave us more 5-star reviews. If you want us to shout you out on this podcast, we will do it. Put in your review that you want to shout out, and we're there.
Yes. Also, hit that subscribe button. Download these episodes if you haven't already. It really helps us out, and it gets the word out to more people around the world. I was looking, and we have been getting so many listens from around the world. It's awesome.
That's crazy.
We are popular in the Netherlands.
The Netherlands.
Shout out to the Netherlands.
Hi, Netherlands.
So I love it. Thank you so much, everyone. All right.
Are we ready?
We are ready. We will talk to you guys again next week. Bye.